Welcome everyone! My name is Michel. I'm so lucky to be invited by the World Zionist Organization to talk to you about a key leader that shaped the history of Israel and its history. His life is inextricably intertwined with the development of Medinat Israel. November 4 marks another anniversary of his assassination. As you figured out already, we're going to pay tribute to Yitzhak Rabin through his own words, thoughts, beliefs, value, and especially through his speeches. What did they have in common? How did they change over the years? What are the values that run through his sayings? Are they relevant today? What messages did he leave us? So we can all be on the same page, I am going to make a very short summary of his life. Rabin was born in 1922 in Jerusalem. His parents were Halutzim, and all he wanted was to study engineering to solve Israel's water problems, but the Second World War started. And he enlisted to the Haganah and later joined the Palmach to fight the Nazis, allied to the British. Rabin enlisted in the Zionist fighting forces before the creation of the State of Israel. After the War of Independence, he decided to stay in the army and to pursue a military career, becoming Commander-in-Chief of Israel's defense forces.
I was born in Jerusalem. I grew up there. Most of my life was spent there. And it happened that I, as an Israeli, as a Jew, was born to the most unique, historic period in the life of the Jewish people in the last 2,000 years. But to achieve decisive results, you have to have air supremacy. And therefore the main purpose was to prepare the Air Force to gain air supremacy in the most decisive way.
The beginning of Rabin's public speeches was after the Six-Day War in 1967. From that moment on, worked to lower the high levels of optimism that existed within Israel. He did not believe that the military option was always the best.
We took risks at war. I'll never forget what happened prior to the Six-Day War. When we presented to the cabinet, I was then the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, how we'll finish the Air Force of Egypt. Out of 200 fighters, we sent 188 in 3 waves to destroy once forever the Egyptian Air Force. We left 12 planes to protect all the skies of Israel against the Syrian, the Jordanian, and the Iraqi Air Forces. We said it's a calculated risk. Without taking then this risk, the war that is called the Six-Day War would not be ended in 6 days and would not achieve the kind of achievements that we succeeded.
Although he was the commander-in-chief of the winning army, after a victory in the Six-Day War worthy of a Hollywood movie, he understood that the confrontations could not be prolonged indefinitely, and it was important to advance possible peace agreements with Israel's neighbors. When he decided to leave the army, he was appointed to be Israel's ambassador to the United States.
When he asked me, aren't you feel alone as the representative of the Jewish state among 120 countries and peoples that are represented in Washington?
There he reached out to the community leaders in the US, as well as to various politicians within the Democratic and Republican parties. At that time, he found ideological affinities and learned about high politics in the United States, and worked to improve the diplomatic ties between the two countries. At the same time, he also pursued his ideas regarding the possibility of peace and negotiations with the Arab countries, as he understood that the United States of America could help the parties to reach lasting agreements. As Prime Minister, a position he assumed in 1974, succeeding Golda Meir, Rabin pushed for peace talks and an agreement of understanding with Egypt that would later be the basis of the peace plan to be signed in the future.
Israel is ready to take part in whatever negotiations, everywhere, in whatever method, in which an overall peace can be achieved.
Hoped in the past, we hope and will never lose our hope that peace will be achieved. But by no means illusions of peace are considered by us as a real peace. And if President Sadat uses so many beautiful words about his eagerness to achieve peace, I offer him to meet him everywhere, anytime, to negotiate peace.
His notoriety for the Israeli public grew exponentially and provoked many surprises. The soldier, the officer, the general, the commander-in-chief, the veteran of dozens of battles, now becomes a voice seeking consensus with the Arab world. At the same time, thanks to his relations with the United States, he began working to improve Israel's chances to defending itself. He also had an important job in supporting Begin's government, which he himself opposed, but understood that it was time for peace. Rabin returned to power during the national unity governments inherited from the political and economic crisis of the 80s, where he served as Minister of Defense and promoted changes in the various Israeli strategies.
I believe that the most dramatic event in the interrelations between the Arab countries and Israel for the good has taken place. The key Arab country and Egypt and Israel are in the process of building peace between themselves. They don't build it as separate peace. It's as a cornerstone for expanding the peacemaking process to the other sectors of the Arab-Israeli conflict. I believe by itself it's an historic development. Let's hope that we'll succeed in the coming years to bring about comprehensive peace.
More than a decade after leaving the post of Prime Minister, Rabin was given the mandate to form a new government.
I believe that we today face a unique window of opportunities. The kind of unique window of opportunities that our founding father, the first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, faced at the end of the Second World War. I believe that this is a unique period in which, at least I feel, that we must give peace a chance.
Not only did he succeed, but he did so by forming a cabinet that was openly in favor of peace and negotiations with the Palestinians, even in the context of the First Intifada.
Do you believe it's going to happen?
I'll do my best. I'll do my utmost to achieve it.
Entrenched in the idea that peace was the way forward, Rabin supported and entrusted his former rival and now ally Shimon Peres with overseeing the Oslo talks, which ended in the first Israeli-Palestinian agreement.
Enough of blood and tears. Enough! We have no desire for revenge. We harbor no hatred towards you. We, like you, are people. People who want to build a home, to plant a tree, to love, live side by side with you, in dignity, in empathy, as human beings, as free men. We are today giving peace a chance. Let us pray that a day will come when we all will say farewell to the arms, we wish to open a new chapter in the sad book of our lives together, a chapter of mutual recognition, of good neighborliness, of mutual respect, of understanding.
Thanks to this agreement, the Palestinians gained international recognition and the possibility of exercising political control over several areas of the West Bank. The counterpart, Israel, was recognized as state by the Palestinians. As a result of the Oslo Accords, Yitzhak Rabin, together with Shimon Peres and Yasser Arafat, were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Your Majesty, we have both seen a lot in our lifetime. We have both seen too much suffering. What will you leave to your children? What I will leave to my grandchildren? I have only dreams to build a better world, a world of understanding and harmony, a world in which it is a joy to live. This is not asking for too much.
However, at the same time, Rabin's opponents considered that the Oslo treaties put Israel at risk, and that Rabin was a traitor. A divided and confrontational country, where half believed in peace and negotiations, while the other half opposed attempts to move forward with the treaties. It was in this context that Rabin's last speech took place. A massive demonstration in Tel Aviv in favor of peace would be the last public appearance of Rabin, who, with an optimistic, hopeful speech, harangued his supporters to continue on the path of peace.
זה כרוך בקשיים, גם במחומים. אין דרך לישראל בלי מחומים. עדיפה דרך השלום מאשר דרך המלחמה. ואומר לכם את זאת, מי שהיה איש צבא, מי שהיום שר ביטחון, ורואה את כאבי המשפחות של חיילי צה"ל, למענם, למען בנינו, נכדינו, במקרה שלי. אני רוצה שהממשלה הזאת תמצה כל צדק, כל אפשרות לקדם להגיע לשלום כולל. עצרת זאת חייבת לשדר לציבור הישראלי, לציבור היהודי בעולם, לרבים רבים בעולם הערבי ובעולם החיצוני, שעם ישראל רוצה בשלום, תומך בשלום, ועל כך תודה רבה לכם.
That same night, he would be assassinated by a right-wing young Jewish extremist. In this tour, we commemorate his legacy through his own words. Do you remember the questions we asked ourselves at the beginning of this video? After reviewing some of his speeches, aren't you still thinking? I ask you again the same questions we asked at the beginning of the video. What did they have in common? How did they change over the years? Are they relevant today? What are the values that go through his sayings? What messages did he leave us? How does this relate to you? What do you take from his speeches? Could something like that happen today? Can social media have a good or bad impact on issues of this matter? Now we can answer them, or rather debate them, with some more information. There is much to say, much to think about, much to talk about, and much to learn. I choose to say goodbye with one of his phrases that resonates most with me. There's only one radical way to preserve human beings. Without armor, tanks, planes, or concrete fortifications, The radical solution, ladies and gentlemen, is called peace.
Salam, salam.